world, hello. I want to begin by acknowledging that we're gathered here on Chief Dreyfus territory from time immemorial. This has been the traditional land of the Yellowknife's Dene First Nation. We respect the histories, languages, and cultures of all other Indigenous peoples, including the North Slave Métis and all First Nations, Métis and Inuit, whose presence continues to enrich this vibrant community. Today we are here together as ministers to wrap up this federal, provincial, territorial meeting of ministers responsible for justice and public safety around the country. Unfortunately, my colleague, the Honourable Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Public Safety, Democratic Institutions and Intergovernmental Affairs, is not able to be here for today's press conference. However, Minister LeBlanc and I want to thank our counterparts for the important and engaging dialogue, particularly our co-chair and host, the immense, literally in stature and in presence, Premier R.J. Simpson, who's been generously hosting all of us today. And some of my colleagues have, similar to Dominic, have had to take earlier flights, so myself and Premier Simpson will be handling the press conference. But I also want to start off by thanking the representatives from the Assembly of First Nations, Inuit Tapirit Kanatami, and the Métis National Council, who met with all of us on Wednesday to discuss key priorities for Indigenous partners and communities. We had robust discussions, including on principles about co-development and the Indigenous Justice Strategy, which targets the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in our courts and in our prisons. These meetings, no matter the focus, are always a great opportunity to build relationships and work cooperatively to meet the needs of all jurisdictions in the Federation. The frank discussions we've been able to have with counterparts at this table have been invaluable as we work to address public safety and justice issues for everyone across Canada. While each jurisdiction has its own perspective, we have the shared goals of strengthening our justice system and keeping people safe in their communities as well as online. I want to provide a few highlights of our discussions over the last 2.5 days. We discussed the bail system and Bill C-48 and the important challenges that face the bail system, which is a key priority for federal, provincial, and territorial ministers. In particular, we discussed provincial and territorial implementation of C-48, which we worked on collaboratively at tables like this and passed expeditiously in Parliament. And also we talked about the critical importance of provincial and territorial collection and reporting of data on bail. We need all provincial territorial partners to commit to collecting and sharing reliable data on bail so that we can better understand and respond to the realities that we see on the ground. Ongoing FPT engagement and collaboration is essential to ensure an effective bail system and to maintain confidence and public safety. We talked about Canada's Black Justice Strategy, which is a key justice priority in the combat against anti-Black racism and systemic discrimination. And we talked about this with FPT ministers in the context of the public release in June of a report from an external steering group, which is called a Roadmap for Transformative Change. That roadmap and report identifies priority areas for transformative change, including the need for federal collaboration with provinces, territories, and municipalities to reduce the overrepresentation of Black people in the criminal justice system, including as victims of crime. Deputy ministers have also directed their officials to advance this important work on combating overrepresentation of Black Canadians through the FPT Working Group on Black Justice to identify areas of possible collaborative action. The working group has already met twice since April and will reconvene soon. Another topic on our agenda was online safety and Bill C-63, which is in the federal parliament now as we speak. Hate crimes and hate speech are on the rise across the country. The scope of the challenge before us is immense, and all levels of government have a fundamental role to play in keeping people, particularly kids, safe online. At the same time, we want to ensure that all people in Canada can exercise their fundamental expressive rights free from threats of violence and hatred. We may not always agree on the mechanisms, but we all agree that everyone in Canada deserves to feel safe and to actually be safe. That is why, to ensure that we have the best bill possible, we are open to amendments to this bill, including those proposed by provincial and territorial partners. We're trying to get this bill to committee as soon as possible so that we can hear from experts from across the country and assess any amendments that are necessary to improve this bill. In the meantime, we will be working collaboratively with provinces and territories in the new Coordinating Committee of Senior Officials Working Group on Hate Crime. In conclusion, before turning it over to Premier Simpson, I want to again thank my provincial and territorial counterparts, as well as our partners in the AFN, ITK, and the Métis National Council for being part of these important discussions in our beautiful location here in Yellowknife. Our ongoing dialogue and strong partnerships are key into the administration of justice and public safety in this country. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to RJ.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us. It's been a pleasure to welcome federal, territorial, and provincial ministers responsible for justice and public safety, as well as Indigenous leaders and delegates to the Northwest Territory. And I especially want to thank our local Indigenous Elder, Richard Mercredi, and Elder in Training, Shirley Seda, for starting us off with a prayer and starting us off in a good way. It's been an honor to co-host this meeting and to be able to work collaboratively to advance issues that are important to all Canadians from all regions of this country. This meeting has shown that beyond the issues specific to each province or territory, many issues bring us together and inspire us to cooperate. This FTP was an opportunity for collaboration and coordination among governments and with Indigenous partners, working in areas of justice and public safety that directly affect Canadians. I look forward to continuing this important work with my FPT colleagues. Thank you to the federal, provincial, and territorial ministers and the National Indigenous Organization leaders who made the trip to Yellowknife. Many thanks to the officials and staff for their efforts in working in preparation for these meetings. We've had some long days, we've had some long discussions, but we've made progress. And we've worked together, and we are going to continue to take steps to improve the lives of Canadians across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier Simpson. So with that, Caroline?
Great, thank you. Nous allons maintenant amorcer la période de questions et réponses. So we're going to start questions and answers. We'll start with questions that are in the room. We'll go with our standard format, one question, one follow-up, and just asking reporters to identify themselves before they ask the question. So pause to see if there's any questions in the room.
Hi guys, Jocelyn here with CBC North. My first question is this is a little short.
Welcome to my world.
I was going to take this off. Thank you. Oh, thank you. There's an increasing drug problem in the Northwest Territories, particularly in smaller communities. Was anything discussed today towards addressing that? And is the government still looking into developing legislature such as SCAN or anything else?
Thank you for that question, and absolutely there is an increasing drug issue in the Northwest Territories. That's one of the main reasons that I wanted to keep this justice portfolio when I became Premier. I saw the drugs first move into the territory, into my community, into Hay River. I was hoping we could stop them before they moved out into the smaller communities. But we're seeing it expand into all the communities, and it's being driven by organized crime, organized gangs with the resources to push those drugs. And so that issues on how to address that were definitely discussed today. It's not just a Northwest Territories issue, it's an issue across Canada. We had good discussions about potential bail reform, about examining search and seizure and how we can help improve the tools that police have to address some of these issues. Over the years, police ability to do their job has slowly been eroded by court decisions and things like that. And so we need to take the initiative as the ministers of justice and ministers responsible for public safety to provide law enforcement with the tools they need to do their job. And we are looking at a number of pieces of legislation in the territory to help with that. And the SCAN legislation is one of those. We're also working on a Trespass Act as well as a Civil Forfeiture Act. And the RCMP have expressed their support for these, and they're confident that it's going to help them do their job as well. Thank you.
Okay.
If I could just add to that, we definitely discussed the organized criminality component at a number of instances, and Premier Simpson has been in the leadership of those discussions, raising these with me and my counterpart, Minister LeBlanc, quite directly. We talked about even aspects where narcotics are entering into the territories through the use of Canada Post. That's something that's extremely concerning to me as a federal representative, and it's something that we will directly address forthwith. And we talked about the need to ensure that We are respecting Indigenous decisions, particularly in remote communities where Indigenous leadership has indicated to us through things like bylaws and band council resolutions about how they propose to keep their communities safe and how we can do that effectively, including through the advent of Indigenous policing and respecting that jurisdiction. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I'm confident with Premier Simpson's leadership and what you have here in the NWT is that we can get to a point where we're keeping those communities safe.
Okay, thank you both for your answers. For a follow-up question, what stage is that legislature at in developing it? And then are you also looking at any other solutions that extend past policing responding to the sort of end result of the drug problem?
Yeah, ultimately, drug use and addiction, it's a public health issue, and I recognize that. We're never going to enforce our way out of a drug problem. And so moving forward, we are looking at how we can better combine RCMP and health efforts to ensure that we're not just responding with enforcement, but also responding with help and leading people in the direction of healing. So there's work going on around that. We are working to integrate services in the Northwest Territories so that individuals who are suffering from addiction, they often have other issues as well. They're often dealing with multiple departments, whether it's income assistance or housing, health and social services regarding the addictions. We want to make it easier for those people to access their services so that they can get the help they need more quickly. As for the progress on those three pieces of legislation I mentioned, we do have a plan to roll them out over the life of this assembly. I don't have the exact dates that we're looking to introduce those, but I've made a commitment that we will. Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Great. Thank you. We'll now turn to questions on the teleconference line. Before I turn to the teleconference moderator, just un petit rappel n'hésitez pas de poser des questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. So with that, I'll just turn to the bell operator to open up to questions on the teleconference line.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the telephone lines. If you have a question, please press star 1. You may cancel your question at any time by pressing star 2. Please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. There will be a brief pause while participants register for questions. We thank you for your patience. Once again, please press star 1 at this time if you have a question. And we have no questions registered at this time. I would now like to turn the meeting back over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, that ends today's conference. Merci pour tout le monde for participating. If you have any further questions, please do contact the Department of Justice Media Relations at media@justice.gc.ca. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been great.